Hi there and welcome. My name is Laura and welcome to the Equestrian Skill Builders live broadcast where we discuss riding position topics and share ideas and exercises to help you and or your riders. If you'd like to improve your riding and training, win more ribbons at your next horse show, or generally like other horsey related stuff, then I think you're going to really like the exercises that we're going to share with you today. Guest hosting with me today is Patricia Jellerson. Hi, Patricia. How are you doing today?
Good, thank you. Good, thank you.
Patricia is a USEF Large R judge and is a regular on the Equestrian Skill Builders broadcast, providing welcome feedback and exercises to improve your horse and riders. So, how are you in Oklahoma today?
Well, like I mentioned, we're starting to get a little winter weather. So, and a couple of my clients just have outdoor rings. So it puts a little cramp in things, but we muddle through. There's still a couple of multiple day shows coming up that are not rated, but we're going to go to because they're close and they're indoors and good practice. So
excellent. Well, yes, it's that time of year when you probably need to have an indoor arena. Mm-hmm. Well, that's Patricia, and I am Laura Kelland-May. I help people improve their riding and training. I'm a competition coach specialist, high performance trained, and an Equestrian Canada senior judge, hunter, jumper, equitation, and hack, and a senior steward. And I help. And I produce live, I'm reading my script here. I produce live equestrian related videos on Facebook and YouTube. So last week, before we get into the topics this week, last week we had on Laura King of Summit Hypnosis and Wellness. Patricia, I'm sorry you weren't able to be here with me for that. It was really good. And I'm going to put a link in the comments for she has an MP3 download and a workbook and a discount code of 25% if you want to have a session at Summit Hypnosis and Wellness. So I'm going to put that in the comments there before we get started. Okay, and then after our show last week, we had lots of comments on. I'm just putting it in the comments here. About other horsey related stuff. And that's what we're going to talk about today is the horsey related things that we all like to talk about. Before we came on live, Patricia and I just kind of go over what we're going to be talking about. And sometimes I swear we could talk all day about these things.
So true. So true.
Yeah. So we do try to talk about equitation and position stuff. Today's a little bit different. We're going to talk about how to keep your legs still when you ride in the flat. One person wrote in, my horse tosses its head when I put the bridle on, and what they can do about it. And horses who get quick over fences, and a couple other topics that we're also going to talk about. If you do have questions for us, we love questions. Please put it in the comments. We'd love to hear what you have to say and what you'd like to talk about.
Absolutely. Anything concerning horses, we're happy to put our 2 cents in, right, Laura?
Yes, our 3 cents. 3 cents Canadian. Right? Okay, so the first question is how to keep your legs still when you ride on the flat.
Well,
okay, I think so go ahead.
I was going to say, I think number one is lots of 2-point, because that gets your center over your leg, which helps keep your legs still, and helps keep you from clenching with your knee, which will make that lower leg swing. I think working without stirrups, especially at the sitting trot, to get a nice connected position that's following the horse and going with the horse, because a lot of times if we're riding against the horse, that's when things start bouncing and moving around.
Yeah, so when I think of how to keep your legs still when you ride on the flat, what I think of is like totally position, and why do your legs move? And I think there's a couple reasons why. One is that you're pinching with your knees.
Mhm.
Right? When you pinch with your knees, if you're gripping with your knees, your lower leg swings back when you do your rising trot, or if you're in 2-point, or if you're cantering, if you're pinching with your knees, your leg is going to be swinging. So,
Right.
what are some exercises we can do to help prevent that? How to stop pinching with your knees?
I think again the sitting trot, lots of sitting trot without stirrups, because I think it gives you the feeling of getting your whole leg on your horse, which sometimes people are worried to do at the canter because they think they're going to make their horse fast. But all horses need a supportive leg, may not be a driving leg, but a supportive leg. And I think working a lot on the sitting trot with and without stirrups helps give you that.
Yeah,
What
totally.
about you? You have some ideas for exercises, I know.
Yeah, so the lower leg, keep your leg still. When I think of, if your leg is moving, it's because your seat isn't independent.
Mhm.
And I like the 2-point idea. I like the working without stirrups, but I think I'd even like to go back even further than that and start doing some work on a lunge line. If you have
Mm,
somebody, we didn't even talk about this before. Is the lunge work? Do
right.
the old time exercises of work without stirrups on a lunge line where somebody else is. You're on a quiet, relaxed horse who you can just relax on and sit on and focus on your position, and
Mhm,
somebody else is controlling that horse for you so you can do exercises and make your seat independent of the rest of your body.
mhm.
uh, Things like lifting your left leg off the saddle back on, lifting your right leg back off and on, lifting both legs off and on, off and on, or even reaching forward, touching your horse's ears, reaching back, touching the horse's tail, touching your toes. All those exercises really, really help to improve your independent seat
And balance in general.
balance.
In general.
And
I like one thing I like is when you're sitting, put one hand in on the pommel of the saddle and the other on the cantle,
yeah,
and open your thigh a little bit and feel those seat bones not driving into the saddle, but settling a little into your saddle, because your seat bones are your base of support. And even when you're in a 2-point, they've got to be close to the saddle and in the right place.
exactly. Yeah, that's a really good one, and that's a simple one that you can do right now,
Mhm,
really.
mhm.
And along with that one as well is oh shoot, it's gone from my brain already. Yeah, front and back.
Hands up to the, hands to the side and
Yeah,
everything, holding
that's
the arms straight out.
yeah, just even
Mhm.
even these things. Oh, yes, now it's come back to me. Is take the palm of your hand and put it on your lower back so
Oh.
that you can feel your back moving. And you
Mhm.
can feel that, so that helps to get your seat independent. Now, the question was how to keep your legs still when you're riding on the flat, and we're not saying keep your legs still. We're giving you exercises that's gonna help you make your seat and leg and upper body independent, so that will get your lower leg still when you're riding.
Right. Make sure your stirrups are the correct length.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
like them to hit right at the ankle bone. Depending on your horse, if your horse is a very wide horse, you might need them a touch longer. If it's a very narrow horse, you might need a touch shorter. I generally, anything above novice riders, I have them ride a hole longer in their flat work than I do when they jump.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And I think too, along the same sort of line is to develop that spring in your joints, your hip joint, your knee joint, your ankle joint. They have to be like springs and supple and relaxed so that they can absorb the motion of the horse while you're riding. If you're tense in your hip, tense in your knee, and tense in your ankle, that is also going to prevent you from becoming part of the horse and staying still with your leg.
Exactly. Yep. Good points. But you're very solid on that fact that the leg being still generally is the byproduct of a larger problem. You know, either you're pinching with your knee, or your seat isn't independent, or your lower leg isn't stable and underneath you. You know, it's not just the leg being still, it's usually related to something in your
The leg
position.
moving is a symptom of something else that's happening in your body.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. So, now that you've mentioned that, that reminds me of the poles. We're thinking of 2-point position, going over poles. This will help get that spring in your knee and your ankle and your seat. All those exercises to help keep
Trotting
your
poles in the sitting trot is a good one, because the horse is going to get a little suspension as they trot over the poles, and your seat has to be relaxed and your center of balance in the right place, not to get jostled around.
jostling. That's a good word, jostling. Yeah. So then the final thing about this is, I was going to say something about if you're doing your sitting trot. Do you think you should start with your sitting trot, or what do you think if your leg is moving? What would be the first exercise that you would do if somebody came to you in a lesson and said, "Patricia, how do I keep my legs still when you ride on the flat?" What would be the first exercise you would do with them?
Probably sitting trot, because I want to get, it's easier to get those angles the way they need to be when you're sitting on the horse, as opposed to breaking that up with the posting. And then I think a lot of times at the canter, people are just so worried about staying with the horse and keeping the horse where they need to be, that they don't, often concentrate on their position quite as much as they could at, say, a sitting trot. What about
And
you?
well, and would you get them to hold on to the saddle, or
Um,
what would you do?
it depends on the rider's level. I'd rather than holding onto the saddle, I'd rather use a neck strap,
Okay.
or grab a little piece of mane. But you've got to start where you can do it. If you're doing it at the walk, um, start at the walk. Make sure your hands are independent of your seat at the walk. And then start with the sitting trot. Make sure that your horse can do a gait that's comfortable for you to sit. That's
Like a
something.
slow joggy type thing.
Yes. And then go to trotting your poles. Don't just pick up a trot over some poles and expect it to be successful.
So Anne Marie says, "I love the exercise, which forces the weight in the heel in the stirrups, helps squats, which was shared on another episode. Makes you more aware of the feeling and helps you position your seat." Yeah, excellent. Thank you so much, Anne Marie. Yeah, exactly. So yeah,
That's true. It's the same muscles that you use in a squat, because you're keeping your knee relaxed, and your thigh and your lower leg are supporting your body. So it's
and when
very
you think about squatting, you are closing your hip angle, your knee angle, and your ankle angle, which are those shock absorbers that you need to help keep your legs still. So for me, if someone says I can't keep my legs still, what I would put them on the lunge line and make them do exercises and exercises and exercises. I would back up the bus right up to the beginning. That's what I would do. So watch out. That reminds me of when I think I told my instructor I couldn't do sitting trot. Guess what I did for an hour?
Sitting trot. Yeah, that's kind of a bad thing. I'm making sure my phone is off here. Sorry.
That's okay.
making, that's a bad thing sometimes, to go in a lesson and say immediately what you don't like to do. I know. Well, that's something we need to practice then.
Yes, exactly. And that's exactly what I did, is all those exercises was, leg on, leg off, leg on, leg off, lift both legs up. Of course, this was 100 years ago. Both legs off and pedal like a bicycle. Okay. Well, I never said, one, I can't ever again. And two, I never gave her any ideas for lessons. Okay, I'm just writing a little.
Yeah, it's kind of like Nona taught me this too in the early stages of working together. It's like you always want to do what the horse doesn't want. If the horse, in other words, if the horse wants to join its friends, you make them stand by themselves. If they're sour at the gate, you stay away from the gate for a while. If they're, want to get quick, you make them go slower. If they're lazy, you make them go faster. It's like you usually kind of do the opposite of what they're inclined to do if it's incorrect.
Yeah. Not to be a bitch about it, but just because you are wanting to help train the horse or train yourself. Okay, so does anybody have any questions or comments about that? Please put it in the comments. And, if you do have a picture of yourself, if you do want to have your position reviewed, send me an email. I would love to have show your pictures here. I'm just looking for the banner that says where to send it. Send me an email.
And be careful when you send pictures. Try to send ones that are close enough for us to see details, because it's really hard on a small picture. We can't really blow it up or anything to see. So make sure it's close, and try to get your timing right if you're taking a shot over the jump, so it's right over the top of the jump and not too far or too soon.
Yeah, we did have a few before that were from the side, which was great, but they were like way at the other end of the arena, and it was just, okay, I think she's got her heels down. Right? But okay, so let's go on to the next topic here. My horse tosses their head when putting the bridle on. What can I do?
Me first, or you
Yeah.
first? Okay. I would say, we talked a little bit about this earlier, and you had a great point. The first thing is to check the horse's mouth. Make sure there's no sores, there's no loose teeth, there's no sores on the tongue or on the inside or the corner. Just check them and make sure that there's no physical reason for that to happen.
Exactly. That's the first thing, is make sure there's nothing going on. I like what you say, missing teeth. I mean, if you have a young horse and they may be having a new tooth come in, that's something I had forgotten about. But yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah. And
so get your vet to look at it. Get your vet to look at your horse, and
a little loose and they need to be pulled. That happens sometimes with older horses. Yeah. And then the other thing is, that I find is very important, is it's difficult to be reaching up to a horse to do anything, to clip their ears or their bridle path or pull their mane or put their bridle on. If you're reaching up towards them, their first instinct is to pull away from you. So I would say, if you're a short rider on a tall horse, get a stool or a step ladder, something that's going to give you a little more height so you can be on the same level working with that horse.
Yeah, right. So instead of reaching up, I know the way I was taught to put on a bridle was, because when you're a kid, is to, if your horse's head here, is to reach underneath, and that automatically the horse puts his head up when you reach around like this, right? So rather than reaching down underneath, think of reaching over top of the horse's head, or teaching your horse to put their head down is another.
I mean, I'm not a huge treat person, but there's nothing wrong with having a treat in your hand as you get ready to bridle your horse. Make them drop their head to get the treat, and let them know that this isn't going to be something terrible, and they can relax and enjoy their treat, and then hopefully stay relaxed while you put the bridle on. Make sure your bridles can adjust it correctly. You know, there's nothing horses hate more than squeezing a bridle on their head
Oh,
that's too small.
flossing.
And if your horse is real sensitive, some horses are super sensitive about their ears and don't want you squeezing the bridle over there. You might have to loosen the cheek pieces a few holes so that it slips on very easily, and then adjust it once you get it on the horse. You know, if your horse is very persistently worried and upset that you put on the bridle.
So that's so true. And I think if you've ever had a horse that's quite bad to bridle because of a previous issue, I know I've done this, is put the crown piece or the piece that goes over their head first, and then do up the cheek piece, like just
Oh,
have
yes,
put
yes.
this and then just have the bit. Just, I mean, I've done that before because the horse did have something going on in its mouth, and rather than try to do everything all at once, it just kind of slipped it in that way. But the other thing too you have to remember is to think of it from the horse's point of view. What is going on, what's going to go on after you put the bridle on. So you have to make the thing that's going to happen after the bridle be enjoyable as well. If you are not having a great ride, or if you're pulling on the horse's mouth, or the horse isn't comfortable when it's being ridden, they're going to not want to start that process and make it more difficult for you to put the bridle on. So you have to keep in mind, as you're working with your horse, things from the horse's point of view. Be thoughtful of what's going on in your horse's mind.
And think out of the box a little bit too. You know, if you're having consistent problems and you're doing all the things that we're talking about, maybe your bit is uncomfortable for the horse. Maybe it's not wide enough, or it's too sharp, or it's too much. And because, you know, if they, like you said, if they feel like they're going to have a bad experience, they don't want to take that bridle. And please be careful about not clanking their teeth.
Oh, that was the other one, right? Exactly. Totally forgot about that. Maybe it's that simple, that when you're putting the bit in, I hate that. I hate that. Hearing the bit clank on their teeth when it goes in, and clank on them teeth when it goes out. That is, yes, exactly. Maybe it's something like that. So if that's the problem, if your horse doesn't like the metal clanking against his teeth, maybe try a rubber bit for a few times, or practice. Yeah, exactly. So Kaylee Jarowski, she's got a problem here. So Kaylee, if we have time at the end, this is a great question. Problem picking up the right lead, but pick up the left lead. When I try to change lead, he won't. So this is something, if we have time, we will try it at the end. We got a few other things we want to talk here about. If not this one, we'll do it for next week. And Marie says, I also warm up the bit in my hand first. Excellent idea. And also some people put molasses or honey or applesauce or something like that, some peppermint on the bit to encourage the horse to want to take the bit as well.
Yeah, that's a good point, because when it gets real cold outside, you know, that makes a big difference, warming that bit in your hands and putting in an ice cold bit.
Yeah, I can't imagine. Right. Exactly. So did we cover everything off? My horse hustles. So the other thing of this is to training your horse not to put its head up. Maybe it's just you're short and it's just kind of lifting his head up. Just, oh, you can't reach my head. You know, the school horse trick. Then you possibly need help to teach him to, you know what, you got to put your head on. You got to put your head here.
Yeah. And have someone that's that's good at it demonstrate, to make sure that you're not, and watch you put the bridle on to make sure that you're not doing anything that needs to be corrected.
Totally right. So I've got this thing I want to try here. Okay. Hang on. There we go. Just break things up a little bit.
I like all your ideas, Laura. I like all your ideas. Uh-oh, are you frozen? I think you're frozen, Laura.
You do?
There you go.
You like that? Time for a new topic.
Yes, I like that.
Yeah. Okay, so so that if you have any questions about your horse tossing its head, please, we'd like to hear your comments on that. And we're going to move on to the next one, which is, what about horses that get quick over fences? What can we do about that?
Well, again, it's usually there's a bigger issue at hand than the horse just getting quick. A lot of times horses, we think when they go faster, they're eager to jump the jump, but a lot of times it's nervousness and it's apprehension that makes them quick. So you have to figure out, like you said, look from the horse's point of view and what you're doing. I mean, maybe the horse is being overfaced a little bit. Maybe you need to go back to basics, some gymnastics and simpler jumps until the horse gets over it. I think to make sure that you're not anticipating and jumping ahead, because so many times that's why we need a ground person. The ground person, you may not feel it, but the ground person can say, look, you're tensing your body and your muscles, and that's communicating itself to the horse. So that's something to think about as well.
Yeah, so make sure, and again, just like what we said with the bit, is make sure that there's nothing that your horse is reacting pain from. Is it something that you're doing? Are you pulling on the horse, or does your saddle not fitting properly? Is it pinching his withers or their withers, or does they have a hoof abscess coming on? So all those things too, you have to kind of take into consideration. Maybe your horse is running away because it's in pain somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Very true. And I think if you've eliminated a lot of those things or done what you can with your position and that kind of thing, then we look at exercises to help the horse slow down a little bit before the fences. To me, a circle is always a great thing. An on balance, correct circle before a jump to give the horse time to think and collect itself a little bit and not be rushing. I think a well done halt is you come out of the corner, not like one stride in front of the fence, but as you come out of the corner and you're several strides away, a well executed halt, give the horse time to stand, a little time out, and then turn and go into a circle and come to the fence again. That I think helps a lot.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're saying get back to your basics and start doing some flat work.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So I do have like this one the setup that I showed you at the beginning with the poles in a cross shape, like this. That looks kind of fun to me. That if you do this and then you can do something like this. I mean, and if this is I just had to do it this small because of to show in a diagram here. But if you could have this really big,
right?
You could have it, huge. Which is what you were saying, do a straight line, then do a nice balanced circle. And I think that's really important too. It's not whipping your horse around and running it into a fence somewhere. It's sitting up, keeping the horse balanced, keeping your legs closed, and doing a proper downward transition.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
A circle, yeah.
Absolutely. And this looks like a great exercise because you canter the pole, you circle, you canter a pole, you circle, you canter a pole, you circle. So it's breaking it up a little, the sequence of the poles or the jumps, as you might call them, breaks them up a little bit and gives the horse time to think. You want to get the horse to relax and think about what they're doing a little bit instead of just going off adrenaline and nerves.
Exactly. So it's not just sitting there and being a passenger. It's actually riding the horse and being proactive and don't let it get running away and getting fast, doing something before it has the opportunity to do fast, supporting the horse, balancing the horse so that it doesn't go faster.
And again, listening to the horse, I remember a show not too long ago. We bought a young horse, a 4-year-old that was schooling wonderfully at home, quiet, happy. And when we got him to the show, he just had so much to look at. And the first class we took him in, it was just a little bitty, like 2-3 baby class. He got quick. And the second class, we tried another. I had a very good rider on him. He got quick again. And this was not this horse's normal behavior. We knew he wasn't hurting anywhere. So it was just a training issue. I think he just wasn't ready to be there. So we backed off, didn't show him anymore, just gave him time to hang around the showgrounds and hack and school and that kind of thing. That I think that was a very clear example of a horse just being a little overfaced.
Yeah. So, like you say, some people think that they're eager, but really it's their nerves and they are insecure about it. So they just run. Some horses may not. Some horses may back off and refuse and not want to go forward.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I thought I turned off my.
Yeah, I was going to say,
I'm so phone. I have the sound turned off, but then there's all these applications and whatnot that I probably still have on. I'm so phone illiterate, I tell you.
Yeah, I know. Comes with age. Okay, I mean, there's so many. We should do this in depth. We've got lots of exercises we can do, but I think what we're saying is do your homework, do your transitions. Don't let it get out of control. Think about what's happening with your horse. And I like where you say, Patricia, to look at it from the horse's point of view. Maybe they are getting overfaced.
Yeah, a lot of times before a jump, and there are some horses that are just strong horses, that aren't worried or upset. They're just big, strong horses and a little bit of bullies and like to drag you to the jumps. And those horses, you have to come up with the training exercises, the circles, the poles. You can always put a trot pole or a canter pole in front of the fence to slow them down a little and think about what they're doing. Bounces, I find, not bounces, but poles with one stride in between to help the horse settle and get the right distance instead of rushing and jumping tight. Those are all some exercises for the chronically strong horse, which there is, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so. Sometimes, though, when horses, I think when horses see more than one jump, I guess it's their whatever stage the horse's training is at. If they see more than one jump in a line, they often get anxious about it. So sometimes they do speed up, and but like you say, it's so dependent on the rider, the horse, what stage of training they're at. It's trying to figure out and knowing the horse and rider combination based on your own experience too of how to set up.
Yeah.
When I think of a horse rushing, I have a picture in my brain of a particular horse. I don't know that I would use one strides. I would think for me, I would do 2 jumps, 4 strides, 60-foot line, and then canter in, trot, trot out, canter in, trot, trot out, canter in, trot, canter out, trot, canter in, slow the canter, do 5 strides, canter, so
Yeah.
then, and that's just because I'm basing it on the experience that I've had with and when, but if I see a different horse that's running away or going faster, I think, oh, well, that wouldn't work with this horse. I'm going to try bounces. So, or pardon me, 1 strides or 2 strides, or, so it's such a, there's such a variation.
Yes, and I think that, again, is the importance of having a ground person. Everyone needs a ground person. I think that even riders that are accomplished riders use a ground person, can use a trainer to help them at times if they're having issues like that. And if you don't have a trainer handy, at least maybe get a knowledgeable friend that can see the whole picture and shed some light on things for you.
Or get somebody, your friend, to videotape you so you can, or
Oh,
videotape.
right,
There we go. I am dating myself, to take a video of you so that you can watch it back.
Videos.
Yeah. How could you forget about videos?
I know.
So Anne-Marie asks, would you do these no stirrups? I think if a horse is rushing, I would keep your stirrups.
Same here.
If we're talking about the same thing, Anne-Marie, I don't know if there's a lag in the production or not, but yeah. So I would say keep your stirrups, because maybe it's the rider gripping with their legs that's causing the horse to be quick.
Yes, I mean, tension from the rider definitely communicates itself to the horse. And a lot of times there's not much we can do about our nerves except to try to ride through them and not let them consume us, But a loose leg going back and forth, or bumping the horse, or too tight a leg clenching on the horse. Like I said, jumping ahead like a rider that, as they get to the fence, starts to get more forward and more forward and more forward. Things like that can all help make a horse get quicker as well.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go on to the next topic. You like that?
I do. That's a good segue.
Yeah. Okay, so this question, somebody asked, would on my YouTube channel, would a judge pick a well-bred horse over a horse who wasn't bred to look perfect in the hunter ring? That to me, this is a loaded question. And Patricia.
Well, as a judge, I'm judging the performance first off. First and foremost, the performance is the most important thing. And if you're in a flat class, you're being judged on the horse's movement. It's not so much the breed or the breeding that you're looking at, but the horse's overall movement. And any breed can have good movement, and any breed can have poor movement, but there is a standard that we're judging by: a flat knee, close to the ground kind of gait without excessive action, without a high head or an inverted back. And then for the jumping, again, finding the jumps is the most important, first and foremost. And then you start really thinking about style and the horse's way of going. And I would never say one breed should pin over another, but sometimes as a tiebreaker, if I have 2 horses that are very close, I might prefer the horse that has nice conformation, is short coupled, as opposed to a horse that's very long backed, a horse that's built inverted. But again, that's if things are very close and more or less my personal preference, which as a judge is what keeps us, individuals instead of just a computer.
Yeah, so I totally agree The breeding of the horse is not something that I would even know, quite honestly, if I'm watching a hunter round or if it's going, the thing that I notice is its performance. Does it have an even rhythmic canter as it's going around? And does it get to each fence properly? If it's a beautiful horse, well bred, excellent mover, an excellent jumper, but it has a refusal or doesn't get to the right fence or has a chip in or all those major faults, if then it doesn't really matter how beautiful, how well bred, how gorgeous it is. The performance is the first thing. It's got to find 8 jumps properly, correctly.
Right.
Then
Absolutely.
you start layering things on top of that. Then it's the jump. The performance is one. It's got to get to all the jumps. It's got to have a decent form over fences. It's got to be a decent mover. So all those things come into, not the breeding. There's not a line in the judge's card that says, "Oh, this is a nicely bred horse." We don't know what it is.
Right. Or a particular breed or another, like,
If it's
if
a
I see a
thoroughbred
big,
or warm blood or a
right,
pony or whatever.
if it's a real distinctive breed, like say a Friesian, and they come in to do a jumping class, I'm open-minded, sure. And if they go around and they jump well and show good style, it doesn't matter to me what breed they are. But some breeds, like some of the draft breeds, tend to move a little heavier or have a little more action, knee action, that kind of thing, and that's going to matter. And it's just kind of
But if it
coincidental.
has good performance, if it's got an excellent, a good performance and has good form over fence, if there's a beautiful horse that chips in at
Oh yeah,
4 fences,
oh yeah,
then it's the performance.
yes, yes,
But like you say, if there's a beautiful horse type that you like, thoroughbred warm blood, versus a draft type that have the same performance, then whatever your preference is for your type is going to make the difference.
right, absolutely. Absolutely. And I've seen in my years of judging, I've seen, as you have, I'm sure, I've seen all different types of horses, all different breeds. And I've seen good horses in each breed and horses I didn't care for so much in each breed. They're not exclusive. One or the other is not exclusive. That one breed is not is usually a bad horse or not suitable, something like that.
Yeah. So to answer the question is, would a judge pick a well-bred horse over a horse who wasn't bred to look perfect? The answer is no. No, it's the performance.
And a lot of times people will say too, though, that happens at the big shows. But when you're talking about the big shows, when I judge a class at a big A show with a lot of professional and very strong riders, you're looking at least a dozen trips that are excellent and horses that are excellent, good movers and good jumpers. So that's where it's going to come into play. So when people say, oh, they're prejudiced at the bigger shows, I don't think that's necessarily so. It's just that there's so many good horses that we're getting down to really fine points.
Exactly right. Yeah, like you hear people say, "Oh, the judge didn't like my horse." Well, the judge was only picking gray horses. Well, that's because probably the gray horses were jumping nicely, right?
Yeah, unless you can really sit there and watch and analyze the whole class, it's not very fair to make assumptions, I think.
Okay, let's move on. Cut that one short. Okay, so somebody sent in somebody sent in this photo. I'm just going to show the photo. It's a helmet, a riding helmet with some rose gold trim on it. And I'm going to show a picture of it. I think this is the right one. Yes, this is it. And she asks, is this helmet acceptable for the hunter ring? Now, I did an informal survey of some judging friends and stewards, and here's what I found out when I asked people about it. One judge said, I'm just going to read her comment here. She says, I don't love it. However, I don't love the shiny black plastic ones either. So she doesn't love it, but doesn't love the shiny black ones either. A steward friend of mine said, go ask the judge if it comes into the ring. If you see it in the warm-up ring, go ask the judge and make the judge make the decision about this helmet. And Patricia, as a judge, what say you about this helmet?
Again, it's personal preference. It's a little too much bling for me in the hunter ring and the equitation ring. Of course, perfectly fine in the jumpers, but I can't, if someone comes in the ring, I can't make deductions because of it. A lot of it has to do with the first impression, overall impression that the rider gives, and the tack and the way that the horse is dressed and all, and that's only human. You can't really fight that first impression. But again, a tiebreaker, if they're two horses that are very similar, that are extremely similar, I get to pick the horse that personally I prefer, and that most often would be the horse that's a little more conservative in tack.
I'm just looking up in my rule book about it, because I think it uses the word conservative, right? About the helmet. So headgear.
Yeah.
I'm just reading the rule book here. No.
But this is not a cheap helmet, and we talked earlier, if you're going to spend this much on a helmet, why not get something that universally would fit the bill? Why even take the chance on having some judge that might not care for it? Just if you have enough money to have one helmet for the jumper ring and one for the hunter ring, more power to you. But if you just have one helmet that you're using for everything, I would go with the one that is going to be best suited for everything.
Yes, I agree. And also, I think it depends on the class that you're going in and the type of horse show that you're going in. If I was judging a local or training show, came into the hunter with this helmet on, I probably wouldn't notice. But if it were a Saturday night hunter derby underneath the lights at an indoor show, and there was 100 people in the class, I would probably say something, or go ask the steward, or go, something. I would do that. If you are concerned about it, if you do have this helmet and you're not sure on the day of your horse show, go to the steward and say, is this, put it on the show committee and on the show management. I bought this helmet. This is my helmet. It's got rose gold in it. Am I allowed to wear it today? Ask the judge. Could you ask the judge, please, or something? Don't be afraid to go to your steward and go to the judge and say, I've got this. Is it acceptable? Because, some judges may say, yeah, that's great. Could be, it's not hurting anybody. It certainly is passable as far as protecting your head goes. So those two things are for me, important. As far as riding goes, those are the important things. But it doesn't meet the requirements for being conservative. And as far as equitation, if you were in the Maclay Medal finals and you came in with that, I don't know. I think some eyebrows would be raised.
I do too. Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of times what I'll do as a judge is, if someone comes in with an unusual piece of equipment that I'm not sure about, like a bit that might not be standard, or that there might be some kind of a deduction involved, I'll have the steward, after they come in, go over and talk to that trainer or rider and say, just say, if I were you, I would not come back into the ring with that piece of equipment.
Yes.
There are bits that are not standard and frowned upon and that kind of thing, or rigs, if a strange cavesson or something like that,
Yeah. Yeah. So what Patty Downing Nygaard, she says, if I have to ask the question why is this person using this, then that's a question that puts a question in your judge's mind.
Absolutely.
So one of my steward friends says, is it going to hurt the horse's performance? That's her question. And if it, as far as a steward goes, is that going to hurt the horse's performance? And that she says, let the judge decide. So that's the answer to that question.
But just remember, I don't know if it's this way in your shows, but I know it in ours. You can't approach the judge directly. No. You have to go through a steward.
Yep. So go to the steward, go to the show management, find the steward, say, I've got a question about my helmet, and they may answer your question for you saying, well, that's not conservative, because the rule book says conservative. Is that conservative? I don't know. So instead of using this one, there are other options. I'm going to stop my screen share, and then I'm going to do another screen share with a different option. There's a black one. So same brand. It's just black.
Right.
So
and that is conservative. That is considered conservative. Even though it has a little bit of gray,
yeah,
it's still considered conservative.
So instead of having the rose gold, it's got the silver. Yeah. So those are just, these are the types of questions we get asked. So if you do have a question, please feel free. You can put it in here and, or send me an email, thistleridge@hotmail.com. If, I'm just going to put it in here. Where's my email one? There we go. Send me an email if you have a question. Love to hear from you. And we do have time to answer one more question as well.
Should we go back to the lead question?
That's right. I'm just going to find it way back here. About the lead. He does one lead and doesn't do the other lead.
I mean, my question first would be, what is this horse's level? Is it a green horse? Is it just starting out? Is it a more finished horse that has got a lead problem?
Bullseye has a problem pick up the right lead, but he will pick up the left lead fine. And when I try to change the lead, he won't. So it sounds like he has problems picking up the right lead.
Yes. And for that, first of all, I would want to watch the horse and like you said, make sure that there's no issues. I'd like to see the horse maybe going around pen or on a lunge line, see how he does without a rider. A lot of times if a horse picks up both leads on a lunge line or in a round pen, then you're looking maybe at something that the rider is inadvertently doing. If the horse is still one-leaded under those circumstances, then there has to be some retraining involved.
Yeah, and again, Patricia, I even back up the bus more than that. Make sure that they can physically do it. Maybe they have something, maybe they're getting an abscess in their foot. Is this a chronic thing, or did this just happened last week? Maybe he stepped on a stone somewhere, or pulled a shoe, or has a stone bruise, or got kicked in the shoulder, or there's so many different things that can happen.
Right.
That if it's a chronic thing, then yeah, you need to do some retraining, because it's the muscle memory and they're very one-sided. But if it's something that's just happened this past week, maybe it's something that you need to get the vet out to see.
Absolutely. And there's tons of things to do to help with the lead. But I think if we just have a minute, I would say to go, because you have the key there, one-sided. The horse is obviously more comfortable on one side than the other. So I think we need to go back to our flat work and work on getting the horse supple and comfortable on both sides, and make sure at the trot and that they can bend and that they can move away from your leg laterally, and that they're evenly balanced on a circle both directions, and put that time in first, because if those building blocks are not right, then by the time you get to the canter and picking up the correct lead, that's not going to be easy.
Yeah, that's true. They make sure that the horse can move both ways properly. And I'm wondering if the horse would do it outside in the pasture if a horse was chasing him, because maybe it's something the rider's doing.
Right.
Maybe the rider's one-sided.
Well,
if the rider's twisted like this all the time.
That is.
Yeah. So if what's the question again here? If they do the right lead, Kaylee, Bullseye has a problem. Pick up the right lead, but he will pick up the left lead fine. So we don't know what the problem is. Is he running into it and picking up the left lead, or is he running into it, picking up the right lead, but the left lead is okay? So we're not quite sure what kind of problem you're describing, Kaylee, but if your horse has a problem picking up the right lead, a quick fix for me, if everything else seems to be going okay, is to put a little jump in the corner of your ring, a down on the ground on one side and higher up on the other side, on the right-hand side. So when the horse is going around the corner and you ask the horse to canter on the right rein, he's got to lift up that leg a little bit more.
Good. Very good.
That's a simple tip that you can use for a horse that is very difficult getting the right lead. That this is, making sure that he's not sore, that he's developed equally, or, he's finding it difficult. Maybe it's a strength thing. Or so if you just want to help him and help yourself, doing that little exercise is a great way to help get the horse on the correct lead.
Yeah. Good. That's a very good one. Very good.
Yeah. That's just a little trick. I mean, these little tricks, they come, out of nowhere. Somebody mentions it to you somewhere, you read it, a little snippet in the book somewhere, but these things really, really help.
Yeah.
All right. So I think
That cracks me up.
I know, it's great, eh? All right, we're done and out of time. Thank you so much.
Some questions and some pictures. We love questions and pictures.
We love questions and pictures. If you have any if you have any questions about your riding position or want some tips on your riding position, send us an email at thistleridge@hotmail.com. Love to hear from you. And we would really like to have you send us stuff in, because we'd like to talk about horse related stuff. If you have any,
we never run out of things to say, right, Laura?
Well, I don't. Do you have any final words, Patricia?
No, just that I know it's winter time, and for a lot of people that's a difficult time, but try to get out there and ride in spite of the cold whenever you can, and keep working your horse through the winter so that you'll be ready for riding and showing in the spring.
Yes. Oh, okay. Oh, I just got a Facebook message saying, great episode. Thank you, Anne-Marie. Appreciate it. Now, go use this stuff and go hug your horse. We'll see you next week. Oh, next week, I wanted to tell you, we've got Shelley Paulson, a professional horse portrait photographer coming on. So she is, so I'm really excited about talking with her. Now go use this stuff and go hug your horse. Bye now.